Welcome to Wide Awake Stories from Insomniac.
Now, here's a little story I got to tell about three you know so well.
Welcome to the Church of What's Happening Now.
Wide Awake Stories from Insomniac.
This is a journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new value, and a new experience.
Broadcasting from the Insomniac HQ. This is Wide Awake Stories.
Welcome back to Wide Awake Stories. This is episode 21. How's everyone doing?
Fantastic. How are you?
I'm great.
We're legal this episode. So
We
now
are
Wide Awake
legal.
Stories and you have something in common.
We're both 21.
Yay!
Until Friday.
And then you turn 22.
Then I'm 22.
Well,
So
we
then I'm
tried.
up to date with these shows.
We tried.
All right. It's all good.
Hi, Deirdre. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. And Mr. Bailey?
Marvelous, thank you.
Yes. Wonderful.
Quite.
How has everyone's year been? This is the last show of 2018, our December episode. So obviously a time of reflection and pause.
I mean, we say this every year, but it blew by. It was a whirlwind.
I was going to say the same
Really
thing. When you're
blew
21
by.
shy, years feel like a long time. When you're 30, like me,
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
years go so quickly. It's just stupid. I'm just shocked that it's the end of the year already.
Yeah, well, the four stages of men growing up as it relates to the holidays is stage 1, you believe in Santa Claus. Stage 2, you don't believe in Santa Claus. Stage 3, you are Santa Claus. Stage 4, you look like Santa Claus. So that's pretty much how it
Well, I'm
goes.
I've never heard that before. That's funny.
You can use that if you want.
I'm turning
So
grey,
true.
that's for sure.
The year did fly by, but there was a lot of amazing stuff, a lot of amazing albums, experiences as well. Obviously, EDC was a big one for all of us here because we had camping for the first time, doing that again in 2019. But that extended the EDC experience for all of us working by a few days, but looking forward to bringing that back again for 2019, even better than before. What about shows? Did you get out much with the baby? You bring the baby with you? Is the baby your plus one or plus one half?
I did bring the baby, actually. It was he was good in the clubs. I just had to...
In Ibiza?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Ibiza.
Ibiza.
Yeah.
Or Ibiza.
Yeah.
We took him there. It was fun. I didn't go as clubbing as much this year, obviously.
Because he's sober.
I am also sober.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I forgot. What are we on now?
7. Do you know when you're doing well, when you stop checking the sober app every day?
Yeah.
So
that's
it's
good.
around 7 months.
Steve, what about you?
In the music context, went to a lot of great shows, a lot of fun warehouse parties. Standouts, the Fortet show this past year was incredible.
Oh, yeah. Was it Masonic Lodge?
At the Masonic Lounge, yeah, with the light installations. It was really special. That's one that will go down in the books, I think. I saw Nils Fromm in a church this year. That was moving. That was really, really cool. He is just like a mad science genius. At EDC, I had a lovely moment sitting up in the bleachers watching Boys Noise play.
I love Boys Noise.
I love Boys Noise, and it was just really coming full circle.
It was like 22-year-old Deirdre.
It was,
oh my
I mean, the
God.
whole reason that one of the reasons I love electronic music, like what I grew up listening to, what I saw in Berlin, why I moved to Berlin, why I started working for Insomniac, seeing this artist play at Insomniac shows and then at EDC this year, just sitting, enjoying with friends and my boyfriend, and it was really special. It made me feel good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Shai, what was your highlight of 2018?
I went to Japan. I planned it around Fuji Rock Festival.
Cool.
So I got to see Skrillex do live covers of his old classic songs, and with Yoshiki, who's this crazy drummer from X-Japan, who is like the Michael Jackson of Japan to them. I've never seen people love a man so much. I got to see MGMT and Kendrick and Superorganism. I think they're so weird and so cool. So I think going to Japan and experiencing all types of music there was a good way for like the middle of the year. It was very inspiring to finish
Recharge
the
your
year.
batteries.
Yeah, I think
for
I'm
sure.
just so used to going to, some of the same shows year long when we're working, that stepping out and coming back makes you appreciate things a little differently and
100%.
keep an eye out for, different styles and the way that people do it than just a DJ set, which is kind of what we're talking about today, right?
It is exactly what we're talking about today. It's an amazing segue.
Thank you.
Before we get into what we're talking about today, though, what about, we'd like to know what your highlights of 2018 were. So use the hashtag WideAwakeStories. Let us know what your favorite moments in dance music were this year. What were your highlights?
Well, Shai alluded to, this episode is all about live electronic music. So I guess the first thing we should do is pretty much define what live versus non-live electronic music is. So I think the easiest thing is it's not CDJs or turntables or just kind of DJing, if you will, as the main.
It is not pre-recorded.
Not pre-recorded.
I think the easiest thing to do to describe live electronic music is to just agree that it doesn't exist.
I completely disagree.
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
What do you? Are you the drum machines have no soul bumper sticker guy?
It's you can't do electronic music live. It's electronic music. By the fact of what it is, electronic music doesn't mean it can't be done live.
That's not
true. I think there's an extent. Like I've seen DJ sets in the past year where I'm like, God, this is not live. Like this is literally not live.
So you've got two people on a stage and a bunch of synthesizers and drum machines. They're loops, so it's like it's not live. You can't play live every drum, every kick, every pad. You just can't do it. So
sequencing is the word that we're looking for.
Right.
I think you can still sequence and have a sequencer and run things in a sequence and still have a live performance.
Absolutely.
I would say there should be another word for it because it's not. Live is like,
Well, let's admit then that you've now backpedaled because it does exist.
Flip-flopper.
I just don't think
I just
they
want to
have
be the
a
controversial
word.
one.
There's just like not another word aside from live.
It is semi-live. That's the thing. But
imagine seeing Gorgon City semi-live on a flyer. That's why they call it live, non-DJ set or DJ set.
I think it's okay to say that it's live, but we're now in a space and time where we can have this conversation and figure out what it means rather than saying it doesn't exist. That's basically what I want to acknowledge.
Well, with the advent of more MIDI devices and what's the word I'm looking for? Just
like synthesizers and
not just
and
synths,
pads,
but yeah, like
the trigger devices
that Audio makes and like what Sasha used when he started doing
all trigger stuff. All that
people can be super creative using samples and sequencing and still be super live. Like Arab music is to me a perfect example of someone who just goes ham on sort
Kink
of push buttons
too. I mean, Kink has so many gizmos and gadgets that I have no idea what they're called.
Exactly, we have no idea what they're doing either. They put them on the stage.
Dan Deacon?
I watched Kink with Ame literally play live. He would show Ame what he was doing on a tiny little keyboard that you could hold in two hands that looked about the size of an extra large Sega Genesis. Ame would watch what he was doing, got it, and would riff off of it, and they were bouncing recordings back and forth and completely riffing off of each other.
Bouncing recordings back and forth isn't live. It's just like
creating it in the moment.
It's just
I think
next
that
level
the word
mixing.
live,
give us the definitive word here.
I think that the way that live is used is not just mixing on a CDJ. It doesn't mean like live band. It doesn't mean, it's not pre-recorded, but they're experimenting with it. Like I've seen a few artists that, they're playing like kind of off Ableton and all these little pads that I couldn't tell you what they're called, but they're changing it up every time so differently and mixing things up so much that it is like a live version of the original pre-recorded track that's like already out. It's something different that like you probably haven't heard, or something that they practiced like so much, and it's just always going to be a little bit different because it's not the same. I'm going to mix in.
So maybe Daniel, what you're getting at is that if you're having a hard time considering it live, it's done in real time. It's done on the fly.
Parts of it are done in real time, and very little of it's done on the fly.
But there are lots of bands that do it on the fly, and it is considered live in the sense that they're doing it right here, right now.
if you're someone's playing the keyboard and you have someone playing on the drums and you're doing a live version of a song with a band or an orchestra, then yeah, it's live.
Like LCD.
Right, that's live.
That's live.
Yeah, that's live.
Yeah.
I think there are more bands doing it now and certainly attempting to do it now,
Right.
and they want to do it now. And when they're recording or producing their releases, the next step for a lot of upcoming artists or people who are inspired by live acts, that they consider themselves band and they try to create a band experience when they tour a show.
So looping things that have been pre-made and tweaked and mastered isn't what I consider live. So in order to do a full electronic music live, you would need 50 people on the stage, because that's how many stems there are in a track. That's how many parts there are to a record. Someone is doing the hi-hat, someone is doing the kick drum, someone is doing the top line.
I guarantee you Rufus 10 years from now would want to do something like that, just the way like Moby would do a full orchestra. Like that's obviously a dream, but when they're touring in their fourth album, that's not really possible just yet. They can do maybe a 3-piece, 4-piece, 5-piece, but it does exist.
BT is someone who came to mind when we were chopping up this topic initially, because I remember seeing, I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find someone who is as nerdy and geeky and studio driven and sort of, I mean, he made his own freaking Beat Stretcher app many years ago. I remember seeing shows where he was on stage with a keyboard. It was on this cool little spring thing, and he had a bass player, he had a drummer, I think there was even a guitar player. So I would consider that like the early iterations of sort of live, obviously Kraftwerk too, but
yeah, Kraftwerk, I mean,
and then it kind of went away when the Superstar DJ era came around, because electronic music got so big.
I don't think it went away. It just was not at the forefront. And then the big DJ craze and that rock star mentality of one person, you know, with their hands in the air, you know.
But now who do we, I mean, you've got, like you said, RÜFÜS DU SOL.
RÜFÜS DU SOL.
Odessa.
The Presets.
Yeah. They're
awesome live. And let's not forget Solwax when they tour. That live show is amazing.
Yeah.
Hot Chip, I consider that to be live electronic music too. And then, you know, Granddaddy's Underworld, when they tour, that's a live electronic act as well, and just one of the all-time greats. And then in the Rufus interview, they talk about Trent Moeller. Trent Moeller live is awesome.
So let's dig into our two guests. You can probably tell who one of them is already, RÜFÜS DU SOL.
Big scoop, by the way.
Well done. For sure. The intrepid reporter John Ochoa out our East Coast office, taking care of that interview and talking to the guys before one of their shows that they played over in New York.
Wide Awake Stories from Insomniac.
We're sitting here at Terminal 5 in New York with John and James from RÜFÜS DU SOL, arguably one of the biggest live electronic bands in the game right now. Let's set the scene a little bit. This is night one of a 3-date sold-out run at this massive venue, and this also marks the end of your 24-date North American tour. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being well-rested, 10 being I need a medically induced coma, how tired are you?
We're going into 11 territory right now. No, I think we started going into the colder climates about a week and a half ago, going through like Detroit, Chicago, into Minneapolis. You know, we went to Canada for a little bit, so I think the cold's getting to us a little bit. And you know, it's pretty exhausting touring. You know, playing shows night after night, but our spirits are very high.
Yeah, I'd say this is the most sick I've been actually at the moment. Because just the touring lifestyle catches up with you, and we've also been working on some things behind the scenes, so we've sort of been I'm really burning the candle from both ends. But every time you get on stage, you're like completely reinvigorated. It all seems very, very worth it.
Has this been one of your biggest tours to date, or if not your biggest tour to date?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the fact that we have been playing the biggest shows we've ever played, I guess in general, these are the biggest headline shows we've ever done, really. Like, we played a venue in San Francisco that was the Bill Graham Auditorium. That was 8,600 people. So it's pretty surreal to, like, be playing such like when it gets beyond a certain scale, it's like kind of mind-blowing. We're really stoked that it feels like there's still this momentum, you know, and there are people who are connecting with our music on such a scale.
We know DJs and electronic artists tour like crazy, especially in North America, some often performing multiple shows a night. What's your tour setup like? How are you in a tour bus? Do you have multiple people touring with you outside of the band?
Yeah, it's evolved over the years for sure. I mean, it doesn't seem too long ago, or at least it's like burnt in my memory of us being in a van, traveling around America or Europe and Australia with just the three of us in the band and one crew member, like who would drive, he would tour manage, he would do sound, like, and we would all pack up after every show and do like these loadouts through like crazy scenarios of like pushing people aside and stuff. And over the years it's evolved to now we have like 16 people like on tour with us. We have like 2 tour buses, a semi-trailer full of all our gear, and a lot of this tour has been back-to-back shows, so you sort of play the show and then you jump on the bus and you sort of like go to sleep in your bunks and you wake up in the next city and we search for the nearest coffee shop and we do it all again.
Do you ever wish you could make life easier and trade the guitars for the CDJs?
No, I don't, because I guess the cool thing about what we do is that we are a live act, but we also love club music and we get to still DJ. We're playing an after party tomorrow night at Szymanski, which we played at a few times. So, you know, we kind of get to do the best of both worlds a little bit. And that's kind of at the heart of what we do, is we channel our favorite, more sort of niche underground club influences and stuff that, you know, isn't necessarily crossover in any way, but then we love, you know, music that involves instrumentation with our bands. We listen to Radiohead growing up, you know, we love Foals, so, you know, there's no trade-off needed, you know, we get the best of both worlds.
So how do your DJ sets work? Is it the three of you playing a back-to-back-to-back DJ set, and how do they compare or contrast to what you do as a live band?
Well, we've evolved that over the years too, to the point now where I guess we all are avid music fans and we collect and collect and collect. And if we put a DJ set on that night, then we'll come together usually and have like a couple of hours of just either just jamming on some CDJs together and playing each other what we've got, or just listening in a room to what everyone's got for tonight. And then in that way we all sort of across all the music, and we're able to sort of be able to plot a journey together on the stage that night, which is really fun. We just get so it's sort of back to back, as long as we all know the music.
When you launched RÜFÜS DU SOL back in 2010, did you always picture it as a live band, or were there ever any iterations of the band that was not what it is today?
Yeah, I think the initial vision was always that it would be a band, and that's been a really strong thing for us, like an identity for us, is that we are a band, and that, you know, while behind the scenes, like when we work in the studio, we all, you know, contribute we're not restricted to whatever we do on stage. Everyone can program drum beats, everyone plays keys, contributes vocal melodies. It's kind of like just this really nice collaboration. But as an identity and like as what we identify with as a group, we're, you know, a band, and that's always been like the heart of the project, is that crossover of a band that also listens to club music and delves into the world of electronic music.
And when you write music as a band, let's say for the new album, do you write it picturing what it would sound like from the stage, or as what it would sound like on an album?
Yeah, no, I think it's good just having the experience that we do now of playing festivals around the world and so on, is that we have that knowledge in the studio to go like, oh, this is like a part that will really help energize a set, or that would really sort of break it down, so we can use things like tools on the stage. But generally we're also just trying to work on a feeling whenever we sit down to write a song, and most feelings can be used on stage, and we can sort of harness that in any way later. So we really just try and garner that headphone listen that we're recording it right then and there, and make people sink into a feeling, whether it's pure like joy or whether it's heartbreaking or whatever it is.
With regard to your creative process, how does it work? Who does what? Who contributes what music, and how do the songs come together?
It's pretty fluid between all of us. There's no fixed process as to how we start a song. It could be basically like when we wrote this record, we found a spot in Venice in California, and it was an Airbnb that had this disused studio in it, which was like a fully acoustically treated space, but hadn't really been used for years. So we decked it out with a lot of like synthesizers that we wanted to get for a while, some drum machines, guitar pedals, like little effects units. And basically it was like a playground, and like every time we write an album we kind of make a different iteration of this playground, and so we'll go there and like, someone could be jamming a keys, like a chord progression, and we'll go, oh, that's sick, let's go from here, and we'll try and go with the spark as quickly as possible. And if that dies out, then we go, all right, let's start again. Then we might if we're listening to an act that we really love, and there's a kind of beat that we really like, and we go, oh, let's try and reference a similar kind of beat, might go from there. It could be any number of things, or we could just aim for let's write something that feels like a certain feeling. It could be joyous, a bright, kind of thing, or let's make something really dark. So yeah, it's not really fixed, it's really fluid, and basically the thing that we're, I think, getting better at is pursuing the initial spark and trying to run with that, and I think that's the skill set that we're developing.
John, in a previous interview you said that electronic music doesn't need to be strictly electronic. What did you mean by that?
I guess that's just something that we've always based what we do on, so that we always work within two worlds. Like we work with electronic music, but we also work with live instrumentation and textures and organic sounds. And even just by like chopping up like a little guitar lick or something, and completely digitizing it in some way, it's then electronic music, but you're using organic textures. So I guess that's something that we play with a lot, is just trying to combine those two worlds often.
With the music industry today allowing for so much crossover between genres, does an artist have to pick between being a band, or identifying as a band, or identifying as an electronic group or an electronic act? Can they be one and the same?
I think there's definitely more room now, than ever before for a band to, exist in multiple spaces, especially if they, don't articulate or consciously define themselves as something. It can be a really interesting space to exist in, and bands, there are a lot of groups that are delving into psychedelia as well as electronic, as well as rock, as well as soul, throwback. Like more than ever, it's like a pastiche, like a pastiche era in a way. Things are like, there's like a lot more blending, and I think it's just a way more interesting space to exist in.
Yeah, and that's something that we're like all grown up like hearing as bands have like grown up like Radiohead with a much more thrashy indie sound, and then like have pursued interest in electronic music in different records and things like that, and that really excites us too, to not be held to anything.
So speaking of what you grew up listening to, who are some of the artists and bands that influenced your sound when you were younger or now?
I guess like we were talking about, listening to Radiohead, who's like a band who also pursued electronic and mixed that. But also like I remember listening to Chemical Brothers really early on. That was a big influence on us artists. And they, in the same way, they're an electronic act who had a huge live show. Trentemola, that kind of European electronica. Book of Shade, again, like an electronic act who now are like really renowned for their live show.
There's some of the, and Rakes Up, and they're all really good references for how we bonded as a group at the start. And then I think like Moby was one of the first sort of examples of someone where I saw play with those two worlds, which we were talking about earlier. that really sort of piqued my interest. I found it so fascinating as I learned more and more about him too, and how he samples and plays with live instrumentation versus electronic sampling and music.
Today we're seeing a class of electronic acts like yourselves who are also experimenting with live instrumentation and electronic, that weird space in between. There's you guys, there's Odessa we're talking about. Do you see this as a future trend in electronic music with more live electronic bands happening?
Yeah, it definitely feels like that's the trend at the moment, and there's a lot of interest in, you know, this kind of iteration of electronic music, perhaps as a reaction to, you know, what the EDM, you know, in inverted commas, what the EDM thing became. You know, it's like there's like a resurged interest in, you know, performance and instrumentation and skill, you know, that kind of skill set. But with, you know, in the world of electronic music and like the kind of feelings that exist within that realm, yeah, it definitely feels like that's blowing up. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we're obviously very excited by, and we see like lots of our friends in similar fields like Bob Moses and Hayden James, and really talented musicians who are challenging themselves to really work out how to recreate what they're doing in the studio and make it entertaining to be able to perform it live. And I just think that that's a really good push between artists, and creates this camaraderie between us all, where we're all really excited for each other and to see each other's shows and what everyone's been working so hard on.
You've just released album 3, Solace. Obviously, it's doing really well here in America. What was the biggest takeaway from the entire creative process? Because I know it was a brand new experience for you, moving to LA, renting a house, and creating an entire atmosphere, hiring a shaman to somewhat bless the house. So what was your biggest takeaway from this new album in terms of the creative process and the final output of the album?
I think one of the good things that we always do is try and push ourselves out of our comfort zones, and we did that again with this record, and we started fresh so that we weren't just going back to old techniques and things like that. So we learned a bunch of new techniques and ways to write music, which is really cool. So we'll definitely be like able to use some of that knowledge going forward. And then I think one of the biggest takeaways for me personally has just been that as excited as we were to write and get in the studio after 2 years of touring after Bloom, we should have, we got to respect our bodies and make sure we give each other the right amount of time to rest. And excitement is all well and good, and it can really create some amazing stuff, but you just got to learn as well when to check out and just like have a bit of you time.
So what's the deal with the shaman that was at the house where you recorded the album? What was he or she doing?
The shaman is a term that we placed upon him. I wouldn't say that he identifies as a shaman. However, maybe he does unconsciously. But he's a friend of ours who is very shaman-like. He's a shaman-esque being. And he has a shaman aura that surrounds him. No, but basically he's a friend of ours from LA, and he's a man who's aware of he has a compass on him at all times, so he knows what direction things are facing, of which corners of the room. As soon as we showed him the studio, he was surveying the energies of different areas, different corners, and he's like, all right, cool. He had a notepad, he was making notes, and over the next 6 weeks he was basically coming in while we were working on music, working on his own project in parallel, which was this space, and he was bringing in, there was a corner that had the water corner, so he had little shells in that corner. He had the space world, so he had fairy lights that looked like little stars in space. He had the Joshua Tree corner, he had actual ferns from Joshua Tree, so he kind of made this what was a semi-sterile space of a disused studio into this pretty crazy wonderland. So it actually did make the energy of the space different, and going in there it'd be this weird escape into some weird wonderland that he'd created, which kind of it wasn't something that we would imagine making for ourselves. So in a way, that made it slightly more of an uncomfortable, weird new space, and I think that was cool, like creatively. But yeah, I would say he's a shaman. There's no arguing that, but it was our term that we gave him.
Well, now he's a shaman. He's graduated to shaman. Whatever he was doing before. You've just announced your new label, Rose Avenue Records. What can your fans expect from the label, and where do you think the sound is going toward?
Yeah, so we started Rose Avenue Records for a few reasons. We were able to get a leg up from Odessa here in America, and they had a good platform here, and they'd started their record label, Foreign Family. And we were able to release Bloom through that, and that really helped get us like known over here in America. And we wanted to do that for other people, give them a platform for their music to be heard. So we always really liked that idea. And then we also have been working very closely with our friend Cassian, who mixes the most of our records. And he'd been working on an album, and he has a very similar aesthetic to what we really like, which is what a lot of what we've been talking about with that electronic world, and more live instrumentation, but really felt stuff, and it's really well thought out. And none of it's throwaway. A lot of it, you're definitely feeling something. So we're really excited about his album that he's been working on, and his first track's out at the moment, which is doing really well. And he's been working on a live show of his own for the first time. So he's been touring a little bit with us here in America, and he might be in Australia too. So yeah, really excited for all the things that he's going to be doing over the next year. And we just announced Lastlings as the second act that we've put on our label. They're a brother-sister duo from Australia, and again, they like working in this space that we really like. They've got an amazing live show. Amy, the singer, is she must be like 17, 18 now. But she was like on stage like at 16, like playing shows like before us a couple of years ago, and she was already an amazing performer. So they've just developed their sound further and further, and it's in a really darker, cool space at the moment. It's just super edgy. So yeah, I'm really excited for all the music that they've got coming out too.
This is Wide Awake Stories.
I was really excited to listen to this interview and hear what the boys had to say. I'm a really big fan. Atlas was hands down the soundtrack to my summer in 2014, and it's just been awesome to see their trajectory. They totally deserve it. They're awesome and super talented. It was nice to hear them talk about their process and how there are really no rules, and just like if a spark of creativity flies, they just run with it right then and there, just on the fly as quickly as possible, which I like. It sounds fun. It doesn't sound like they're taking it too seriously. Like, obviously, they're going to want to produce the best song possible, but they seem to just have fun with it.
And it's clear that this is just kind of the fledgling stages for where they do want to take
absolutely.
Their sound and their
show. They have a long career ahead of them, and they're all really dedicated, and they're all really creative and passionate. I've loved all three of these albums. I like that Solace is a bit darker than the previous two. Was able to catch them when they were in LA.
She caught me too.
Yeah, I saw Shy. Shy caught me.
Literally.
Shy almost tackled me. Shy almost tackled me.
I was thriving there. It was just very
thriving.
It was cute.
Were you living your best life, as they say?
I felt like the girls that I would probably roll my eyes at when they're jumping around like super obnoxiously, like screaming, "You were right." But you know what? That was me. Like, I was just smack in the middle. Like,
you were not alone. So many people were singing
was, like,
along,
bouncing.
Yes,
like, they
jumping
played,
up and down.
A lot of people knew the new album a lot better than I thought they would. I was surprised how much I even knew. Like, them doing it live and not a DJ set, playing out the entire thing.
And their live shows only going to continue to get better and better.
I unfortunately missed the show.
Okay, well then you know what you missed.
I was out of town.
They covered Glory Box.
By Portishead?
Yes.
Are you serious?
It was amazing.
I was just playing Portishead on my office the other day.
Amazing.
You came in and heard
so
it.
each night they did sold out shows, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I went to the Thursday show. They covered a song each night.
Yeah.
But Thursday was Glory Box. It was awesome.
Well, and that's another criteria to put in our live versus not live. It's like, you know, hey, let's do a cover tonight of someone else's music. Like,
I think that was probably planned.
Oh, it was absolutely
Of course it was planned.
Yeah, we're not saying it wasn't planned.
Actually, I will retract my
Thank you.
music can't be live
We win.
statement because something I've been reminded of during this chat is that I went to see a live electronic act this year and it was fucking amazing.
What did you see?
It was Bonobo at the Greek.
Yes. There you go.
I was waiting for someone to bring up Bonobo.
He actually has a full live band.
Yes, he does.
With
Yes.
orchestra, with drummer, with everything, and he stands in the middle and he conducts the whole thing.
So you stand
And tourism.
corrected, sir.
Well, that is live. Yeah, that is live electronic music, and Bonobo is incredible. And it was
He is.
But you said you
amazing.
don't think that live electronic music is a thing, and you're here like.
I stand corrected. Bonobo.
There we go.
Bonobo's
We
a
have
good
it on
one.
tape. We have it on
Bonobo is a
tape.
good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's incredible.
Love Bonobo.
Yeah.
I love old Bonobo. I love new Bonobo. I love all Bonobo.
I'm
It's
seeing
like-
so
Bonobo.
good.
I have to
this
say, I
weekend.
do like back in the day Bonobo.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, ding, 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 ding. We're at one back in the day count.
Yeah. Speaking of back in the day, Chai, what's your opinion on Orbital and their old work?
Oh God. You guys are putting me on the spot.
Do you have any cricket sound
Shai,
effects?
have you ever seen the movie Hackers?
No.
Okay. Well, I was going to
It's a
say,
young
I
kid, young
missed
episode.
Rufus, I was in town when Orbital, the brothers Hartnell, came into town to play the Belasco, which was an amazing show.
For our younger audience, like Shai,
Yeah.
why don't you explain the importance of Orbital, who they are, and what they're responsible for?
I have one track.
Chime?
Halcyon, on and on.
And on.
And on.
And on and on.
And on and on forever.
And on.
I would say
caught on.
albums of an electronic origin that had songs 10, 12, 15 minutes in length that still managed to be huge touchstones in the dance music canon. Because right now you have something that goes beyond 3 minutes and 30 seconds or 4 minutes and you lose everyone's attention.
Disposable culture right now.
Yeah. And these guys put out records. Not only did they have singles, to Deirdre's point, they had 10-minute track that blended into a 6-minute track, which meant you had a 16-minute listening experience before the song actually stopped.
That's the good stuff.
It's really good stuff. And can we talk about how those guys who have broken up and gotten back together probably 2 or 3 times because they're brothers and brothers fight? Oasis, Black Crowes, Space Hog.
You done your research.
I know brother, but I have triplet sisters, so I'm very well versed in.
Yeah, I don't think he had to research any of that. Rich had that off the top. Yeah. He didn't
I was
research any
struggling.
of
I
that.
had Oasis, but he got there quicker. Orbital have been around, and Chime and some Halcyon, they're probably older than Shai. They probably actually are. When was Chime released? Probably before you were born.
88?
Oh, 96.
Late 80s, early 90s.
So if you are in your 20s and you haven't checked out Chime, go back and go on Spotify and listen to everything because they're immense.
Well,
And
really,
also watch the movie Hackers. And then
Yeah.
I guarantee you'll know.
And you'll get the holy trinity of electronic music,
Excellent.
which
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
Chemical Brothers, Orbital, and Underworld. To me. Throw the Prodigy in there too if you like a little bit of your
Oh, hell
punk
yeah.
rock.
That counts as live electronic too. I can't believe we
Yeah,
didn't talk about
yes.
that. Hell yeah.
Okay, I said I stand corrected.
But as always, the boys were delightful. They were actually featured on an episode of Wide Awake Stories a couple years ago. But they've got a new album out, and they're talking about it, and they're touring, so good for them.
This is Wide Awake Stories.
I'm sitting here with Phil and Paul Hartnell from Orbital on this latest episode of Wide Awake Stories. How's it going, guys?
Fine, thank you. Yeah, really great.
How have the shows been in the States?
It's been brilliant so far. I mean, we're just doing 3. We've done New York and San Francisco, and they were both excellent. So, you know, we're in LA. It's Saturday night. What could possibly go wrong?
Don't jinx it. No, it's been great because we weren't too sure whether we were going to get it together enough, quickly enough to just pop over here. So these little 3 shows have been great because it's a lot more difficult nowadays with visas and stuff like that with all the crew, and it's quite noticeably very, very different. So we managed to get all that together. And so we've got visas for everybody for 11 months now, so we're definitely coming back.
Excellent. How's the new material been going over with the crowds?
That's been brilliant.
Yeah.
You know, we've kind of blended it in with all our old classics as well. So, you know, I think we've got a good mix of that going on. You know, I mean, this isn't our first rodeo. We've been doing that for a while, but no, it's you know, it's good. I think we're doing about half new, probably a little bit more older stuff, and it's been going well, hasn't it?
Yeah. So we got like during the summer, that was more of a festival sort of type set. But now that since the album's out in September, we pulled in a lot of the tracks from there, because it's quite nice when people are a little bit more familiar, and doing our own gigs as well. You know that they are going to be fans, so hopefully they have got the new record by then, and they will get a little familiarity rather than just doing like a classic, top 10 of. Do you know what I mean? Orbital top 10, which is much, which they've probably heard quite a few times.
I was trying to figure out when the first time I was exposed to your music on a live setting, and I think it was Organic 96.
The one up
in Big Bear on the side of the mountain with Underworld, Chemical Brothers, Loop Guru, The Orb, the Meat Beat Manifesto.
That's right.
And everyone, with the exception of a few DJs, everyone was live. It was all live PAs. And that's sort of the theme of this episode is live electronic music. And I think I'd like to start out by asking you guys, what do you quantify as live?
I was talking about this earlier. What with Chime, which was our first sort of first record and first sort of warehouse anthem, sort of, which wasn't a word then. But what happened in the 1990s is that when somebody had a bit of a hit, they would pull them into clubs to do a little PA. And generally speaking, there were people set up an ironing board, put their keyboard on them, and mime for about 20 minutes, which was, that's the way they were doing it. And that's like, So the clubs got into that sort of habit, and we got onto that through Chime. But then we used to set up our studio up on stage, and just why not? Because that's how we saw how to do it, really.
Well, I modelled the way we played live in sort of pretty much on what I thought, and it's interesting because this is all kind of second-hand kind of stuff, in the sense that I did it how I thought Tangerine Dream did it. I'd never seen them, but I kind of just thought, I'd seen pictures of them, I'd heard their live albums. What would they do? And they used to just sit there with all their synths and jam with sequences and play for ages and just jam on a riff. And I just thought, yeah, that's cool. That's the way to do it. And don't forget, that's how sort of we were making house music then. It was very, this is kind of, people were starting to use computers, but essentially it was a lot of hardware sequencers, and you'd kind of, you'd make your track, and even for making records, you'd just jam it. Chime was a studio jam. Halcyon's a studio jam. Lots of our old tracks are just, you sit down, you make your parts, think, right, let's go. And then when you think, yeah, that's a good version, that's what you put out on the record. And essentially, we still maintain that same principle when we play live. At the moment, we've got like 7 big old synths up on stage, Ableton running samplers and MIDI. But it's not defined. There's no predestined timeline. There's no arrangement. We're just playing clips and launching them as you would with an old-fashioned sequencer. And then you hit go and you sort of jam with the Prophet 6 synth or whatever, and go from there. And then to start adding layers as and when you want. And then some of the tracks blend together. Some of them don't. We have hard stops here and there. It just depends. But it's basically a sort of a jam of our material, and we just kind of rearrange them like we would in the old days. Really, we haven't really changed that method, and we keep it so that I don't have to look at the computer. I don't want to sit there staring at a laptop. So I've got buttons on 2 iPads that I can trigger all the sequences from there, and it's really it's really hands-on and sort of old school in that sense.
So when Paul says sequences, like the individual parts, bass drum, hi-hat, lead, and like Paul says also, when the synths that we have got on stage are getting MIDI messages, we've got all the manipulation of the sounds that's going on. So this is like the rawness, and like going back to what I was saying with the live club PA type thing, that was like the equivalent of an indie band doing a pub circuit in England. That's how you build up your indie band. You go on playing in pubs, build up your fan base. So when we had Chime, luckily that people was going, oh yeah, come and do this 20-minute thing. So that was like the equivalent of a pub circuit for an indie band, if you see what I mean. So yeah. Well, on top of the box, yeah, it was a bit of a disaster. We're never having them on again. But they did. did.
Only once thought they'd changed all their producers and forgotten that they said they were never having us on again.
We were complaining that you can't play it. Why can't we can play it live? We can play it live. No, we can't do that. Blah, 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 blah. And so we were really not into that idea at all.
Well, then it was Alex Patterson who completely took the piss and played chess on stage when they had him on top of the Pops.
Yeah. Well, we thought
people used to do that. I mean, I always remember, the ska bands, classically like Madness and Bad Manners used to sit there and play toy instruments and things like that. You know, people did used to mock it up from a certain generation onwards. It was like, well, what is this? You know,
our little bit was like we put the plugs on top of the synths, but of course on TV you can't really see them at all. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we are just standing there, not really doing anything. It was ridiculous.
But I think what it does, I think to me, the line of demarcation is that if you are able to improvise and have one show on Monday be different from the show on Tuesday, that to me is live.
But also, I will just say that, you know, like a lot of people that are performers and that do not give the audience enough credit to think, you know, because you go, okay, what could you know? So if you're like a band that just mimes your backing track, it sounds pretty much like the CD. Oh, great, I love this track, But then when we're doing it, there's a rawness. It's going, whoa. But it's the feeling. Do you know what I mean? It's like I've seen bands that do mime and play this like the CD, but it's, well, it's, you know, I may as well be in my car or something, really, to be honest.
But as an artist, though, that gives you the fear.
Yes,
you get the fear because it's not just down the line. You know that you know, even though the equipment and the touchpads and all that have gotten much better, you don't have to look at the screen like you're doing your taxes. You do get the fear because at any minute you could do something amazing, but at any minute you could also do something not so amazing.
Exactly, which does happen, doesn't it? Happy accidents and accidents that aren't so happy.
As Bob Ross would say, happy little accidents. You know, nothing's not there on purpose.
You guys had any of those lately?
I think the last big one was when we played a massive festival for the BBC in Belfast, and one of our synths was just not, as we call it, one-legged. It wasn't playing. It was out. It just, there was no bottom end to it, and we were just about to start a track with, you know, it's the bass line, and it's like, well, we can't do that. So we stopped and we had to restart the computer and tried it. We tried everything. We changed cables. There was 5 minutes of dead air, you know. And luckily for us, we were in Belfast, so we had a very good Irish crowd who just thought it was funny. And then the BBC managed, because they sort of run everything live, like with a 15-minute time delay, they just seamlessly edited it out. You would never know that it happened. They were absolutely brilliant. So that was really cool.
A big comeback gig on the TV, you know, really like that live, you know.
That mistake never happened.
Exactly.
You know?
I've noticed too lately, we went through sort of like back in the late 90s, live electronic music was sort of the way you did it. Even people like BT, you know, had bands like guitars on stage, bass players. And then when we sort of went into the superstar DJ era, it was more about the DJ or the DJ duo or the DJ performance, not really a live PA. But over the last few years, I've definitely noticed, I'm curious if you guys have too, a sort of resurgence in electronic music artists representing themselves on stage with drummers, with string orchestras. Have you noticed that too? And is there anyone that you've seen where you're like, hey, they're doing a good thing?
Yeah, well, that's one way to go, isn't it? And lots of people do that. For us, because I've thought about doing it. You know, wouldn't it be fun to do it with an orchestra? I don't know if it would. I don't know. It's like this song was written with a Jupiter 6. Why do I want to replace that with 6 string players? I don't know. It's not the same sound. It might be different. It might be interesting, but generally speaking, I kind of like the freedom of jamming like this. If you start taking loads of musicians, you kind of got to have a set structure to the song. You can jam. I've seen the Heritage Orchestra do an amazing jam thing where they were literally writing the notes out and the arrangements on a screen that was being projected to the orchestra. They were just kind of following it. It was absolutely stunning. But you know, it's a different way of going about it. Some people like that kind of, you know, taking a bass player and a drummer, to give it a live element. And I you know, that's great, because it's like you say, it's people trying to do something that's different. I think, is it James Holden? He's kind of he's doing some quite good experimental stuff with. I saw him doing something, I think, with a drummer, a sax player, and him on a modular synth, and it's like, whoa, doesn't sound anything like his records, but he's doing something else, and it's kind of like, well, that's interesting, you know.
Yeah, I did a solo project once. I don't think it was before Orbital. Before Orbital version 2 started, I think. And you know, because you're making the music up in the studio with all your drum machine, so then to convert it live seems a little bit. But anyway, I did this thing, and I got Will White from the Propeller Heads. He's the most fantastic drummer ever, right? He really has got himself electronic kit, and he can jam with improvisation, because he's really, really good. I had a keyboard player as well. It's really, you know, and it was sort of jamming. But for us to then take, it's like, what are we doing here? You know, for us to then take what we've done in the studio and then to convert it to a drummer, what is that? Unless they bring something to the party, there's no real. You're just doing it for what are you doing it for? You know,
I think for me, the live element, the thing that I couldn't do it without, is the sort of having the big hardware synths on stage, because that's the different element, because we're playing tracks, we're using different synths, so they've got a different inherent sound, and we're manipulating them and playing the synths, playing the sounds, producing all of that stuff on stage as you go along on the fly. And I like the tight setup of just two people, so you can properly there's no kind of checking in with the rhythm section to make sure, you know, we're going to extend this bit and all of that kind of thing. I mean, I've done it, you know, at the same time that Phil was talking about. I did a thing with 9 musicians, because I did an orchestral album, and we boiled that down to 9 people, a couple of string players. You know, we did things like replaced, if you like, the whole string section with an accordion player and that kind of thing. So we changed it again, and that was great fun. But it was interesting because it was very rigid in one way, because the structures, you know, with 9 people, they were reading from sheet music, and you know, the songs had to stay the length they were, you know. It's
almost less improvisational with more people. You would think that it would be.
But then you get the bonus of 9 people playing together in harmony, which is a different thing, you know. And it's like I don't want to, if I go and see the Pixies, I don't want to see them improvise. I want to hear the songs, you know what I mean? And it's like, but that's 4 people going, you know, like really hell for leather on stage with no backing tracks, and it just sounds brilliant.
Vocals as well. But the thing is, with your Ideal Condition thing, is what you were talking about earlier, right? With Paul wrote that it was like orchestrated.
Yeah, no, it was written for players.
Yeah, so it wasn't like we're not on sort of converting it. But going back to how you started the question, really, there's a definite distinction between a superstar DJ, who essentially mostly, like in that realm, they are there for a job, and they are there for create the vibe of, and generally they're playing, you know, records from other people, producers, and they are there to like get the party started, you know, and doing all that. Whereas, you know, we are an electronic band that, you know, when you know, Underworld and everybody like that, we're not there to like play a load of club music. That's not our prime directive. Is not to make people dance. Or, you know,
it's to play Satan and make people lose their mind, which is what happened to me in 1996. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's it. But it's, you know, it's not to be. You know, I know, you know, DJs are part of what we call, you know, the dance culture, and bands like us, and you know, like you say, Underworld, Chemical Brothers, we're part of the dance culture. But don't mistake the two things as the same thing, because we're playing. You know, we're playing a gig.
Jobs,
you go to, you know, you can't do what we do in a little club. Well, you can, but it's not the same. We've got a big production, we've got loads of gear. We're doing a gig. You know, we're on at 9. And it's all over by 11. You know, people like, if you go to a club, you're not going out till 11. And but then that's how it works symbiotically. You know, it's like people can come and see this. They can go and see, you know, go to a little sweaty nightclub and dance their socks off till 4 if they want to. It's a different thing.
But going back to when I first started back in the 90s, when we used to jump on the PA bandwagon, that was a little conflict of interest, because they you know, people were like, so, well, they're going to play the hit. It's all going to be dancing. Like, no, this is Orbital. We're going to play like we used to play Satan, didn't we? It was like a slow down
dance floors up
clear
and
dance floor,
breadth of England,
like a hip hop sort of bass sort of thing, like guitars and like Satan. It's like, oh my god, what the hell is going on?
How has the traveling rig changed much, apart from maybe a few more VSTI and a few maybe lost some synths along the way?
No, we haven't lost any synths along the way. I think we got more up there because there's when we were doing it before. When we were doing it before, we were taking all our ancient synths along with us and sampler. What we've lost is the digital stuff, like the samplers and things like Korg wave stations, which you can't manipulate anyway. So we've got all of that now sampled in Ableton, because Ableton is essentially a massive sampler as well. But we're still triggering it the same way we would from buttons on, with the improvisational element. But we've got 7 synths up there now. I don't think we ever used to take 7 synths, but because now everyone's making these really cool new sort of analog synths and good digital synths, loads of synths with knobs on, and they're all kind of, about a foot long and half a foot wide. So so they're all modules with all the knobs on. So you can just take all these great desktop synths and they take up hardly any space. So hey, why not bring them all? We've got 7 synths up there at the minute.
I know that mixing politics with music has always been something that you guys have sort of subversively put into all of your tracks, and I'm sure that this record and everything that's been going on in not just the US but in the entire world over the last few years, even with the title of the record, maybe walk me a little bit through the spirit of the album, because all the albums that you guys have are very sort of connected in terms of from beginning to end. There aren't a lot of things that you can just pull out of there. Everything is woven together pretty tightly. What would be, in your mind, the narrative of this record?
For me, it's the narrative is it's a score of the state of the world at the minute. Monsters exist. It's like a warning. It's like a triangular warning sign. Beware. It's like an old medieval map. Here be dragons. Watch out. Just keep your eyes peeled. And some of the tracks, reflect that. So the Raid is a definite walk down the alleyways and sewers of humanity, and things like Hoo Hoo Ha Ha is a sort of hysterical kind of track, like being on a roller coaster, but one that is broken and you're going to fall off the end, and it's kind of, you're all smiling and happy, but it's not, is this thing going to come off the rails? It's definitely, which is kind of what that very much for me, that and the track PHUK, represent the sort of mess of the UK at the minute. It's like the state of England, like a nation about to come off the rails.
But having said that, that's like, you do an album, Monsters Exist. That, for me, that sparks my imagination. Cautionary. Danger, Phil Robinson. But then you get like PHUK, which actually the track is an instrumental, sort of little bit more of a little upbeat dancey thing. But then, because we're doing an album and we're releasing it on commercial, we get the title and you go, oh, actually we can work with this, and it's which all sort of helps tie it in. And a bit like I was saying, like, you had the punk scene all back in the 70s and the early 80s. Government didn't take any notice. So they go, oh yeah, screw the establishment, no, bothered. Get the rave scene, the instrumental music and all that going off there. I mean, it's like, send it. Thatcher spent millions of pounds just funding the police force to go and beat up everybody at rave parties. It's like, have a word. He was one of them.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
I got beaten up by the Metropolitan Police in Sevenoaks in our hometown.
It's kind of getting back to that time now. I mean, I think about that Prodigy Experience record with the artwork with the guy on one side of the bridge doing this and with the knife about to cut it and all the police on the other side. For Jilted Generation.
Yeah.
It really feels like it's coming back. And then you've got groups like you guys putting out records, and Chemical Brothers are putting out a record next year too, and all these heavyweights are coming back, and the music is just so good.
Well, you see, the thing is with it, when you sort of like, some people get a little bit upset going, because we like hedonistic dance music, and we don't like to, when you're off your nut on here, you don't want to be reminded of the harsh world. It's actually, don't ignore it. Do you know what I mean? We can yin and yang about everything, you know, get like splatter in here and splatter in there.
I'm glad you guys are doing it. I'm glad it's not just rainbows and unicorns all over the place. You needed Satan in 2018 more than ever.
The next album, Rainbows and Unicorns. How did you know?
Well, at least there's this next album. That I don't care what you guys title it, as long as there's a next one.
I like the idea of it being called Rainbows and Unicorns and having a homeless there's a sort of unicorn sat like with his sort of
You heard it here first on Wide Awake Stories.
A flaccid horn.
Yeah.
Should have yogged.
And a rainbow behind it landing in a lovely golden palace that it can't go into anymore.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
This is Wide Awake Stories.
Rich, did Orbital wear their signature glasses with the lights on?
Does the Pope blow white smoke?
Does the Pope shit in the woods?
I did say that. I said, does the Pope blow white smoke? And he does, so yes, they did.
Okay.
I actually have a pair of those. When they, as swag for one of their album releases, they had a limited batch of little eyeglass torches, as they call them, made. And I have a pair.
Really?
And I may bring them in.
You should wear them to like every show.
I should.
With
every electronic show I go to.
You should. People will just think you're
mental.
Yeah.
Mental.
But I'd have to shave my head like you.
So Sam is going to hit us with some live electronic choices.
Are these live recordings of actual live in inverted commas?
So live. No, they're not.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. I was like, do we have
So these are recorded, pre-made versions of tracks that have been also done live sometimes?
These are examples of live electronic acts. Tracks from live electronic acts.
I'm so confused right now, but I think Sam can unravel this for us.
This is Wide Awake Stories.
So, to be fair, you're both technically correct. I am going to be throwing some shine at artists who are holding it down on the live tip, but I've also thrown in a few live recordings for good measure. It seems like now, more than ever, festival lineups are overflowing with acts billed with the coveted live title next to their name. We're definitely experiencing a surge of artists that are trying to capitalize on the appeal of performing on the fly, whether that means incorporating a cool piece of synth, climbing in front of an electronic drum kit, inviting band members on stage as accompaniment, or any variation of the sort. Needless to say, there are plenty of artists who are getting in on the live action these days, and I'm here to share a few songs from that lot. So everyone knows that deadmau5 is someone who has been overly vocal about the need to be separated from what he has condemned as the button pushers. While we here at Insomniac would never discount any of the hard work DJs put in on the dance floor, it's hard to deny that the guy does indeed have a knack for constructing killer sets on the go. The Ableton Mastermind recently unleashed Mouseville Level 2, a collection of new material from himself and some of the shining talents on his Mousetrap label. GG, which is nerd speak for good game, is one of 3 originals that Joel himself has put on the compilation, and that track specifically comes equipped with 2 remixes, one from Gallia and the other from Monster Get Down. The tune is a moody, progressive gem, and it's packed with everything we've come to love from deadmau5 over the years. back in March, UK producer George Fitzgerald gifted the world with his sophomore album, All That Must Be, a 10-song offering that came after he griped about growing tired of club culture and the DJ lifestyle. The LP itself was an apparent departure from his previous work in his catalog, as he took a much more hushed and song-centric approach to every number on the package. As a way to close out the year, which in 2018 saw him put on a number of cool and intimate live performances around the world, Fitzgerald is dropping a remix package that also includes his own edit of the featured cut Half-Life. He's titled it the Day version, and it sees him taking the energy of the original up a notch without detracting from the song's lush and brooding atmosphere.
Wide Awake Stories.
So, as a composer at heart, Chloe is the epitome of a dance music artist who chooses not to be constrained by the club. She's as forward-thinking as they come, really, and her LP from last year, Endless Revisions, really echoed her penchant for boundless experimentation. After a year performing live renditions of tracks from the album at festivals like Sonar and Mutech, Chloe is returning with the live edition of that body of work, which is slated to arrive on her own label early next year. Each song is a reflection of her need to recreate and reimagine her own creations, and the manner in which she revisits the dawn is essentially an art form in and of itself. So I'd like to switch up the tempo a little bit now and show some love to Cohen Sound, a duo from Bristol who initially swept across the bass scene with a funky twist on glitch hop. Having taken on more of the form of an actual band, they have since shied away from the genre while never really abandoning it completely, in an effort to explore softer and oftentimes more orchestral-driven influences. They're now returning to their own Shosin imprint with their next full-length, Polychrome, an 11-track effort that has been 3 years in the making, and it really showcases their uncanny ability to maneuver through styles and sounds seamlessly. Viridian Dream is a definite highlight for me personally, as it's a delicate display of bass music that's not only intricately designed, but it's also just this beautiful emotional journey. last selection this month is a 2-for-1 situation, and you'll see why in just a quick second. Justice undoubtedly changed the game at the height of the Blockhouse movement as one of the most iconic rock electronic acts in the business. The French duo is currently riding high on a Grammy nomination for Best Electronic Album, a well-deserved nom for that matter, for their album Women Worldwide. Their home base, Ed Banger Records, also celebrated their 15-year anniversary earlier in the year by having 27 classic records from their catalog done up by a 70-piece orchestra, and a whopping 7 of Justice's songs were selected for a reimagining at the affair. The recordings of which are now available, and to be quite frank, there's honestly nothing quite like hearing Dance, one of their most iconic records, which I'm sure you've heard countless times on the dance floor, to hear that take on a symphonic incarnation. I can't think of a better way to close this segment out than this track.
Guys, that's it. It's 2018.
Another year.
I can't believe it's the last one of the year.
And we'll come back and it'll be 2019.
What are you looking forward to next year? Shy?
More bass.
Love bass.
Love bass.
I need to come back to me. I'm gonna be the last one. I'm thinking.
I'm looking forward to going back to Mexico. I love EDC Mexico. Super amazing festival.
You love EDC Mexico. Last year, I was taken to EDC Mexico to babysit Daniel.
That's why I loved it. I had a babysitter.
As soon as we got to Mexico City, he's like, I'm not picking you up from the airport. You can Uber. Okay, great.
Oh. Well, I had a great time.
Yeah, he had a great time. He lost me.
This may be my first EDC Mexico.
Oh, you haven't been to EDC
I haven't been
either. And
honestly,
I really want to go to
excited
Mexico
for
City.
EDC Mexico.
I'm excited for all international EDCs next year. I really am, because we're going to a lot of the places that we've just recently gone to, and we'll be going to new places that we can't talk about yet.
Come on, dish the dirt, spill the beans.
Nope, not yet. People
But
get
it
mad
will
at
be
me.
exciting news.
Yes, got my passport
It is exciting
ready.
news to be revealed.
And obviously EDC Vegas is going to be incredible again. And this year we'll be doing all of these sober, so it'll be completely
And you're
new
going to have a great
perspective.
time.
I mean, you should probably do it sober if you're working.
We'll edit that for that.
And then I'm most excited about Chemical Brothers tour.
Yes.
2019. And Marabou State coming to LA in March. I've been looking forward to seeing them over here for a very long time.
I'm looking forward to seeing Massive Attack's 20th anniversary of Mezzanine.
That'll be great, yeah.
At the Palladium, so that's going to be good. If they bring out Liz Frazier for Teardrop, I'm going to cry.
Fitting.
I'm going to have a moment. I will shed a teardrop.
So while you're using the hashtag Wide Awake Stories to let us know your thoughts on live music, live electronic dance music, why don't you also let us know what you're excited for 2019? Or is it 2019? I don't know.
2019.
I say 2019
is fine.
2019. That's a mouthful.
That's how we say it in England. All right, well, we'll be back we're back next year.
Back next year for episode Deuce.
I'll be 22.
Well, there you go.
That's the headline.
That's the most important thing.
Shy is 22.
See you guys next year.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.